Impact segment tonight. Listen to this soundbite from Governor Schwarzenegger yesterday.
What I'm saying to the Mexicans is, you got to go and immerse yourself and assimilate into the American culture and become part of the American fabric. That is how Americans will embrace you. That was my, I think, the secret, if there is one, to success.
Now, that's pretty innocuous, don't you think? Well, Schwarzenegger is being roundly criticized with some activists. Joining us now from Santa Ana, California, is Nativo Lopez, the president of the Mexican-American Political Association. All right, tell me why you are disturbed, angry, whatever you want to call it, about what the governor said.
Well, I'm really not surprised. It once again demonstrates the total ignorance and the prejudice by the governor. Assimilate into what? American culture is still evolving. The great contributions, cultural and linguistic, of the Mexican people on the American culture are tremendous. We are what indigenous America really is all about.
All right,
hardworking.
Now, I'm going to put forth some things, and you tell me whether they're offensive to you or not. I think Governor Schwarzenegger, and I think most Americans believe Mexican Americans should learn to speak English as quickly as possible. Is that offensive to you, sir?
Yes, it is.
And why?
It's offensive. It's offensive to me because, in fact, they are. If, in fact, we were investing more money in educational endeavors and institutions to help people learn English, that would be accelerated. The fact of the matter is that immigrants are integrating and assimilating, if you will, faster today than any other
that may be true, but why would you be offended by the suggestion that Mexican Americans should learn how to speak English as quickly as possible? Why would that offend you?
Because the implication is that they're not, and in fact they are.
All right, but that's a legitimate point. I didn't have that implication in mind, but I can understand how, if you were looking to be offended, you might draw that. Now, I believe that Mexican Americans, all right, Mexican Americans, and I think the governor feels the same way, and most people feel the same way, should try basically to learn the history of this country, should basically try to tailor their lifestyle to what has traditionally been American, in the sense that they don't cluster together and stay together, that they might move out into other areas, and as many millions of Mexican Americans have. It's the clustering, failure to speak English, basically flying the Mexican flag and not the American flag, that I think people object to.
Yeah, well, again, it's the implication is that they're not. In fact, we're in every major population center throughout the country.
Some Mexicans aren't assimilating, and you know it. I mean, let's be honest about it. You go to Los Angeles, and you can go into any neighborhood and see that some Mexicans simply aren't interested in assimilating.
Well, that could be said about any immigrant group, even distant immigrant groups, Italians, Irish. Why do they cluster in their own neighborhoods?
It can be said, and that's another legitimate point.
But there's nothing wrong with that, see?
But I don't believe that Governor Schwarzenegger encouraging people to become, quote unquote, Americanized, all right, is an offensive statement. You do, I don't, and we'll let the folks decide. Now, you also weighed in on the Minutemen brouhaha at Columbia University. And did you support what those students did, making it impossible for the Minutemen to speak? Did you support that?
Well, we don't support the KKK, and the Minutemen are the modern version of the KKK. In fact,
well,
it's offensive that you covet their social space.
The KKK used violence to intimidate black Americans. I don't know of any on the record. There hasn't been any on the record prosecutions of any Minutemen for any violent activity at all, has there?
Well, whether there have been prosecutions, that's not to say that there have not been.
Have you seen any? Have you seen any?
Just last week, day laborers here in Orange County were assaulted by two white individuals. They were arrested by the police, and in fact, they were.
That happens all the time on both sides. Go down to the LAPD.
I'm just telling you about the Minutemen.
I asked you, yeah. You have no proof that the Minutemen have ever done anything violent, because there is no proof on the record. You haven't seen anything yourself, yet you go on and you compare them to the KKK. You must know, Mr. Lopez, how unfair and defamatory that is.
No, the president has called them vigilantes. I think he spoke correctly.
Well, there's a difference between an opinion on a vigilante and the KKK.
That's exactly what the KKK were. They evolved into the most violent
KKK were criminals.
Group in the United States.
The KKK were criminals, all right? They did criminal activities. The Minutemen have not committed any crime. And to draw the comparison is unfair. You don't want to be unfair, do you?
Well, I think it's offensive that you covered the Minutemen, Mr. Riley.
You think it's offensive that I covered the Minutemen? Why?
Absolutely, it's offensive.
It's a legitimate
because their
protest.
message is basically a hate message.
Not a hate message at all.
Their message is essentially a hate message.
They don't like the border being wide open. They protest. Everybody has the right to protest. Their protest is a legitimate protest. I'm not supposed to cover that legitimate protest. I covered
They've assaulted with their language. They've assaulted physically.
That's your opinion. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them do anything offensive in their language. And you know what? I covered the demonstration with both legal and illegal Mexican and everybody else immigrants in L.A. I covered that because they were protesting, and I covered the Minutemen in equal form. Yet I'm supposed to do one and not the other?
The fundamental difference is one advocates hate, one advocates exclusion, the other one
I'm not buying the hate
integration.
thing, sir. I'm going to challenge you, and I'll have you back on this broadcast next week if you can give me one documented hate incident involving the Minutemen. And you can come back, but I'm challenging you right now. Mr. Lopez, we'll see you next week. Thank you. Directly ahead, a Republican